We all love the sitcom Big Bang Theory, and we love its spin-off Young Sheldon even more. Or is it a spin-off? Well, not according to the show creator Chuck Lorre. In today's video, we'll talk all about it, and how the Big Bang Theory creator convinced Jim Parsons on Young Sheldon. We'll also be talking about why Young Sheldon is so rude. So keep watching if you want to find out more. First up, was Young Sheldon planned to be a Big Bang Theory spin-off? Well, to answer that question shortly, nope. It was never meant to be a spin-off, and according to some crew members, it still isn't meant to be that. But fans can't help but notice how it feels like one, and they have absolutely no complaints. So maybe this unintentional correlation might turn out to be a good thing, right? Fans are still hoping to get an offshoot of the show because they love it so much and want more from the Big Bang Theory universe. Now, the important question is, if it wasn't meant to be a spin-off, then how did we get here? Well, we'll have to take a ride back in time all the way to 2017, the time when CBS greenlit Young Sheldon. It was their way of keeping the popularity of the Big Bang Theory at the top, and it worked. Big Bang Theory got a lot of hype even after it stopped airing. How? Well, you can thank streaming services for that. It was available on streaming services, which allowed people to watch the show long after it had aired, gaining a lot more fans than it had when it originally aired on CBS. This went on for around a good 4 years. It was one of the most popular shows at the time. Keeping in mind the insane popularity of the show, the producers decided it was the best time to make an offshoot featuring one of the most loved characters from the show, Sheldon Cooper. And boy, were they right. The show Young Sheldon did incredibly and gathered its own handful of fans all across the world.
Back in pioneer times, we'd be burying her down by the creek.
I'm just saying they're cranky enough, so don't be a pain in the
Following up, why did Jim need convincing when it came to Young Sheldon? Initially, there were no plans to make a spin-off, but as everyone noticed just how well the show was doing, the word began to circulate about how it would be a perfect time to announce a prequel to the show. And guess who was the first one to present the idea for Young Sheldon? Well, it was none other than the actor who plays adult Sheldon Cooper, Jim Parsons himself. But Jim has talked about how he dislikes spin-offs and didn't want Young Sheldon to be one. This was the reason why he was hesitant to take his idea further. He wanted to produce and star in the show, but just didn't want it to be a spin-off. That's what was holding him back from it all. But thank God we had someone who cleared his doubts and gave us this hilarious, witty masterpiece of a show. So, who convinced the actor and producer to actually take the step? It was the show's creator, Chuck Lorre. So that's the man you can thank for convincing Jim to make this show. How did he do it? Well, it wasn't really all that hard, but it was very important regardless. Jim didn't want Young Sheldon to be a spin-off because of his dislike of spin-offs, as we've talked about previously. But then Lorre cleared his doubts when Jim brought up the issue with him. He assured Jim that Young Sheldon wasn't going to be a spin-off, rather a prequel or origin story for Sheldon. This was just what Jim needed to hear in order to finally take that step and start making the show.
What are you gonna do?
No problem. I'll just do my laundry another night.
Up next, if Young Sheldon isn't a Big Bang Theory spin-off, why doesn't the Big Bang Theory have one? Well, this is a question we all have had for a very long time. Why hasn't the Big Bang Theory gotten a spin-off or an offshoot? We mean, the show is super popular and has been doing great. Not to mention that fans would love to see more from the universe. So why hasn't the crew made a spin-off yet? We'll try to answer this question the best we can, so hold on tight. Well, remember why the show ended. A lot of fans don't know this, but the show had to be ended after Parsons decided to leave it to focus more on Young Sheldon. That's why the last season of The Big Bang Theory felt a little rushed to some of the fans. Now after this, the crew had two options: either continue without Sheldon or end the show altogether. And it was mutually decided that continuing without the star of the show, Sheldon, was probably not the brightest idea. With this, the cast decided it was time to wrap things up and say goodbye to the show. At this time, Young Sheldon was already in its second season and was doing really well, better than its parent series in fact. Parsons has admitted after the show ended that he would have loved to see the show continue without Sheldon there and see how things would have gone down differently with his character gone. But the producers thought it was a risk not worth taking to continue running the show without the most loved character in it. So now that you know that, you have your answer for why the Big Bang Theory never got a spin-off or offshoot made. They just didn't think it was a risk worth taking with Parsons focusing on his own thing. Now, let's look a little at Sheldon's character. Now, we all know the kind of character Sheldon is. From a young age, he had his brand set right. He has always been the sassy, insanely smart, and socially excluded guy. Do you know anyone like that? Let us know down in the comment section.
That's great, and look at you, sitting in Sheldon's spot. You know, I don't even get to sit there.
Yeah.
And you never will.
Now, we hope most of you guys watching this video have watched Young Sheldon and know what we're talking about. Young Sheldon is really adorable, with his witty comebacks and a sense of being above his age. Regardless of him being insanely smart, he is still a child, and you can see that through some of the things he does. For example, the way he's rude and stubborn. So despite having a brain that works faster and more than most adults, his childlike attitude comes through sometimes. All this is really adorable, but only when it's a child that's doing all this. In The Big Bang Theory, where we see adult Sheldon, we notice he still has the same stubbornness and rudeness that he had when he was a child. We mean, sure, it makes for some great comedy on television, but could you imagine being around such a person? Exactly. There's been a few fan theories analyzing Sheldon's behavior, and they all kind of make sense to us. Not to mention, Jim Parsons explained to fans why Sheldon's character is the way that he is. Let's look at what fans think is the reason behind his rude behavior and what Parsons himself said about it. Following up, here's what Jim Parsons said about Sheldon's character. Okay, so first things first. Even fans have made up very plausible explanations as to why Sheldon is the way that he is, and that's all thanks to young Sheldon. In the show, we get to see how Sheldon grew up and the things he faced as a kid. Fans of the show think that a lot of things could be explained as responses to the things he faced as a kid, and to be honest, after paying more attention, we get where these fans are coming from, don't you? Interestingly, Parsons has a different way of looking at it, but it all connects together when you look at the bigger picture. When talking to them for an interview, he explained why Sheldon is so rude and even downright offensive to not only random people, but even to his friends sometimes. He said that Sheldon would say these things because he simply just didn't know that the things he was saying were offensive or rude. Maybe that's because he never really had the same socialization that every other kid had. He, as an adult, doesn't understand how the things he says might come off as rude. So he's not a bad person, just bad at being social, we suppose. And we bet you know a lot of people like this as well, who don't really mean harm, they just don't know what's the right thing to say in a social setting. Sheldon, according to Parsons, is just blunt and always speaks whatever he has on his mind. He's brutally honest, but sometimes honesty isn't really the best policy, right? Finally, why do his friends keep up with him despite him being so rude to them? Well, to be honest, we all have that one friend that's mean to us, but we know deep down that they love us and care for us. Sometimes you just have to look at what's inside a person rather than what they tell you. And some fans think that this might be the reason why Sheldon's friends stick around with him, because they know deep down inside them that no matter what Sheldon says, he still loves them and cares for them. Even in the finale, he treated all his friends in the worst way possible. He acted selfishly and made everything about himself, ignoring how his friends felt for the most part. But guess what? His friends still stuck around because they knew he never really meant to hurt them. They know his intentions aren't bad, he just doesn't know when he's being hurtful. But putting up with his behavior doesn't mean they're enabling it. Over the course of the show, fans noticed that with the help of his friends who stuck with him, he learned how to be more sensitive and how to behave in a social setting like a decent person. Now that's what you call great character development in a show, right? And we think that's exactly what friends are for, to help you grow into a better person and not abandon you. That's all we have time for in today's video. Do you think Young Sheldon is a spin-off of The Big Bang Theory? Let us know what you think in the comments section below. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more videos. With all that said, as always, we'll see you in our next video.
Which means the mommy of the smartest physicist at the university is not my mommy as I had thought.
I'd be cheese without the Mac, jobs without the Wozniak. I'd be solving exponential equations that use bases not found on your calculator, making it much harder to crack.